Jay Horwitz with a special edition of Amazing Conversation with my friend Billy Wagner. Billy, right now you're on the precipice of maybe getting to the Hall of Fame. Before we get into that, I remember at the Old Timers game a couple of years ago, no one appreciated Mets history or history of the game more than you did. How does it feel, maybe in January, Hall of Fame, being a history buff? What does it mean to all you as you're getting close to, decision time?
Well, I tell you, being a history buff and knowing what is possible, being that history is so much a part of this game. To be on a stage where you're looking back at, where the greats of all time greats have been, the Tom Seavers, the Nolan Ryans, the greats. There's so many names that flash back through my head that I have looked up to, and the Robin Roberts that gave me a little special attention when I was in Philadelphia. It's a special moment to think about, and from a small town kid like myself from Southwest Virginia, to think that you could stand on a stage with giants and be looked in the same manner. It's very humbling and then sometimes overwhelming because, no matter what people say, maybe I don't feel like I, stand in that light that they do.
But I remember at the Old Timers, you weren't interested in the big guys. You would try to find the 62 Mets, the 69 Mets. You were interested in everybody who was at Citi Field that day.
Well, I just love the game. I love the history of it. I love hearing the stories, the old stories. It feels like to me when, and I think really the greatest compliment a player can get, or I've received, is when a guy like Bruce Sutter or Goose Gossage or one of the older players goes, "Hey, you could play in our era." I really feel like those are the greatest compliments, and I love hearing the stories. I love sitting with them, just hearing the stories of when they played, the guys that they played with, listening to stories about Moose Skowron, or listening to the Mickey Mantle stories, or just listening to the Willie Mays when he came over, and just the stories of hearing, how the process of the Mets got started and how, just the nature of the game. I mean, when you watch the films of the old games, just how true and precious it really was, because you could have a real relationship with fans, and it was truly was like the golden age.
Billy, how close did you follow the process? When you first went on the ballot, you were 10.5%. Next year, you were down 10.2. Did you follow closely every year, try not to think about it? Now, 68-point run right at the precipice of it.
Well, early was frustrating because, I really didn't know the process. Really the best thing that happened was I was probably not doing a lot of interviews because I just didn't know how that went. When you deal with the media, it's very fickle. And so knowing that being type A and opinionated, that you just can't go out there and do those things. And there's no reason for my opinion to be heard because my numbers did all the speaking. And so when you look at the 10.5 and the 10.2, of course it's frustrating. But, looking back through that early process, being humble and grateful to be on that ballot with who I was on there with was, something I really slowed myself down to think about, that, to be on that list was super. But as the process is kind of when I stopped paying attention, my kids pay attention. I kind of have an idea when it gets close, somebody's telling me, but, I've really dove into the high school scene with these kids and tried to really take that and work out and just take those things off of my plate, because it's just things I can't handle anymore. And I think now at this point is probably even harder because, 68%, the first thing that was told to me is, hey, nobody that's ever gotten that high a percentage has not gotten in. So you know what? There's always going to be a first, and you're always worried about that guy.
But your numbers are really incredible. Lifetime 187 batting average against, 11.9 strikeouts per 9 inning, 5.99 hits per 9 innings. 5'10", 180 pounds. Oh, close to over 1,100, like 1,196 strikeouts. Where did all the power come from?
Well, I've been very blessed. God's blessed me tenfold by just going out and giving me the ability to compete and kind of be a vessel for Him. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason I should be able to do this. There's no rhyme or reason some of the guys who were blessed, the toy cannon, and some of these players that were undersized, like Dustin Pedroia, were able to go out and do the things they did. It was just that God-given talent. We love to compete, and you always have to play with that chip on your shoulder when you're playing against these giants, and so. When you go out there and you're facing the Mike Piazzas of the world, and and you're 5'10", that thing he looks like a monster. And so, God blessed me with a great arm and the opportunity to go out there and compete. And, I've just been blessed ever since.
Speaking of arms, if it wasn't for two football injuries when you were younger, you might have been a righty, right? You broke your arm playing football twice.
Yeah. Well, the first time I broke it, the second time I fell off of monkey bars. But, I wasn't one to sit around. So, horseplay and roughhousing with anybody bigger that wanted to play was just kind of the norm around my house and my grandmother's house. So, but like you said, the great story of Roy Oswald, how he started throwing 90 was he was fixing his car battery, and all of a sudden a spark hit him and shocked his arm. Next thing you know, he's throwing 90. He's from Weir, Mississippi, so I don't know how much you can trust in that, but I know that when you watch him pitch, you're going, well, there might be credibility. So we're all blessed, and there's all weird ways that we get to where we're at. But I tell you, for me to sit here and say, you know what, it's this hard work, a lot of us just got given ability, and and when you're given that ability to go out there and to, just respond and use it to the best of your ability. And, I was blessed to go out and be successful with it.
Billy, I want to jog my memory. I remember you come from a small town in Virginia, and you never forgot your roots. Didn't we used to do charities? You always did a charity fair after the year for the people down in Virginia. You never to forget where you came from. Didn't we? We did that, right? You and I.
Yeah, it was second chance learning. We
Right.
take kids and that were kind of slipping through the cracks, and we'd put them into colleges and things like that, and through just tutoring and mentoring, and we'd hold a concert and stuff like that. And I haven't forgotten, because what, I was one of those kids. If I wouldn't have been blessed with the right people being around me and kind of taking a chance on me, I wouldn't have gotten this opportunity to be sitting here in front of you today or play pro baseball. It would have been probably a ditch digger and a grunt. It really would have. And in all honesty, this is a way to give back, to let people in Southwest Virginia and people know that putting in the work and work ethic is truly something that you can control. And if you take that initiative, you can be successful.
But tell me about the school. You still in Miller School, right? And we do travel ball too. So tell me about the coaching you do.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Jay. That's probably the greatest thing I've ever done. I love coaching, and I've been around a lot of great coaches as far as my high school coach, college coach, professional coaches, and in each way they've taught me things that I want to be able to instill with the kids of today, and today with social media and a lot of the pressure, going to this small school of about 190 kids, private school in Central Virginia, right outside of UVA. We have an opportunity to really inspire and show these kids how the ground roots of the game are, and really for me, it's showing these kids how hard this game is, and to appreciate the work ethic, and to give them the sense of being a good teammate and loving what they do, and not considering it a job. And it's one of the greatest things I've ever been a part of. I just truly enjoy the relationships with the kids. I enjoy the opportunity to go out there and watch kids be successful, and the kid's success truly is the reward of the coach. It's when a kid isn't successful, that's when the coach really has those moments of heartbreak, and I see it now more and more because these kids want so much, and having somebody that's been there and went through all the steps and understanding how tough this game is to kind of help guide and be understanding is something that I think God really put me in this situation for.
Billy, don't you help kids get into college too? I remember last time we spoke, you serve like a college surrogate guidance counselor too.
I don't know how well. I like to be able to call the coaches and give them input on these kids. I make a lot of phone calls and things like that. It's difficult more today because of the portals. If you go on the WhatsApp or the Twitter and Facebook and things like that today, I mean, you have to be self-promotional in every way. And me, Jay, I mean, I couldn't be any less. I'm not one to do those things. So it's been, those are things that I've had to learn to be understanding more about for these kids, because colleges really look at, their stats as far, not even their batting average, but their exit velos, their spin rates, and all these things so much differently that you got to self-promote. And I mean, it's funny, while we've been doing this, I've gotten 3 texts sitting here from college coaches asking questions about, a spin rate or how, what's the size of this kid. And, it's changed. I mean, if I was to play in today's age, I would probably not get drafted. I would not get looked at the same way because of the size that people see. And I don't know if the coaches are as committed to coaching as they used to be when I was playing. You could commit and build a kid. Now if that kid's not ready to go when you step on campus, you're not going to be there.
Well, 422 saves, and 7 All-Star teams did pretty well. Billy, tell me, you just in Puerto Rico with your daughter, but she's a basketball player, not a baseball player.
Well, she could have been a baseball player. She's tough. She played softball and she was a catcher, so that automatically means she's tough and hard-headed.
Yes.
So now my wife is pretty calm during baseball season, but in basketball season, she's intense. I mean, sitting beside her I'm getting boxed out and blocked and elbowed the whole game. And so, when she's and so it's good to be in that role and be supportive for her. And I enjoy watching women's basketball. It's probably one of the greatest things. We watch that probably more than any other sport. We watch our baseball, but we probably watch women's basketball more than any sport we've ever watched.
Billy, do the kids in your high school know what's coming up? Do they know what January could mean to you? I mean, are they all self-aware? I know you're not going to tell people, but most of the people around you are aware of what could be happening.
Well, I think to some extent, and that, it's funny. The hardest thing for me is, it's not like, I have 8 coaches that are able to come out and coach. And I mean, I'm there every day. So my concern is always about the kids. So I really don't, I'm always trying to figure out what happens if, I don't know. And I don't want them to be concerned about the what if for me, because I don't go out. I want them to be totally focused on what they have to do. I don't know if they do. Maybe they do. I don't want that. I don't want that to be a distraction. So when I go out there to coach, I'm pretty much, it's about the business of that day. So, but I really don't know. I've got parents that know, but the kids, I probably not.
Billy, my time with you, the 4 years together, what I admired about you, you never backed away from a challenge. You came into a tough market, New York, never always were there, good or bad. And probably the best thing you did, your entrance song was Enter Sandman. There was a lot of controversy. That was Mariano Rivera's song, too.
And that's why I'm losing votes in New York right now, because I should have just changed it.
You stood your ground. You didn't back off, and every time he came from that bullpen in right field, they played Enter Sandman. And, now when they had this thing with Edward Diaz's song, so it could be two people could have the same song. But, I mean, you got, the first 2 years we were there, we were right on the verge of things. I'll never forget, the home run in the 9th inning, the Cardinals, when we lost. And, once Endy made the catch in the 6th inning, Endy Chavez on the Game 7, I would have bet my meager life savings that we would have gotten to the World Series that year in 2006.
Well, I tell you, I would have too. I tell you, to this day, and, I think we did something a while back, and, I was talking to Willie and guys like that. I tell you, there's moments, every career, everybody looks back because I wouldn't change a thing. But I tell you, if there was one moment in time, I would love to have, changed, that game, that moment, been out on the mound, win, lose or draw. Those are things that probably haunt an athlete more than anything. In that situation, I mean, the Sotaguchi home run off of me. there were so many things that, Sotoguchi hadn't gotten a hit off me. And then all of a sudden he gets a home run. I mean, there are so many things that go through that of not playing well or just, not well enough. And so, that year was just one of the greatest and most exciting years to ever be a Met for me. And, to see it come down to that was so heartbreaking. I mean, I think about it. I mean, I see it in my sleep at times where, man, if I'd have done something different, those are the great disappointments in a career.
We won 97 games that year, and so we talk about the ballot. A newcomer to the ballot this year is David Wright, a former teammate. What did you think if he hadn't gotten hurt? I mean, what were your thoughts on David Wright? To me, he was on a Hall of Fame trajectory.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Jay. I think David was that special person that knew how to play the game, handled the media, handled it himself, handled the outside life with New York. I mean, he was the Derek Jeter for us, and I mean, he was our captain. He was the guy who, at 23, 24 years old, he's standing in the limelight, answering the tough questions. And I mean, I know that many of us were able to handle that pressure. The way he came in and competed daily, how he competed and held high standards for himself. I mean, there's no doubt. I think David is a Hall of Famer. I think that, unfortunately, and the thing that I admire about him is he didn't cheat his way to get there. He didn't try to go around it, and I respect that about Dave. I tell you, those are the things that make me appreciate Dave more, because he was a true baseball gritty superstar that probably he is a Hall of Famer. He may not get in, but it's not because he doesn't deserve to be in there. And, we all know that being a Hall of Famer is not just your numbers. It's really what you brought to that era. And I mean, if numbers were truly what we were worrying about, there's a lot of things wouldn't be the same. So David Wright's a Hall of Famer, whether he gets in or he doesn't.
I agree 100%. Are you nervous, Nelly? What do you think you'll be doing on January 23rd, which is late in the day?
You know what? I don't know. Hopefully I'll be busy. I know last year they called me when they thought there was a possibility, and they were like, hey, you need to stay at home so we can call you. And I remember telling them, I said, I'm just probably not going to do that. I'm not going to sit there and be nervous and then not get a phone call. And then it's heartbreaking. I don't think people realize, I mean, this is a moment that every pro athlete, this is like the greatest thing a pro athlete can end his career on, is being a Hall of Famer. And to be so close and to have so many things that, I mean, I don't think people realize there's nothing else you can do as an athlete. Now, my stats are there. All I can do is just be politically correct and listen to all these things. And it is so hard to hear all the negative things. So you have to really distance yourself. So I don't handle that well. So I really distance myself well. Well, Jay, my emotions are on my sleeve. I just, and so you would think at 52 years old, I'd gotten better, but the way I've gotten better is
well, don't change,
don't
Billy.
pay attention.
Let me put it said. So in the Hall of Fame, here, 224 players, 342 total people, executives, managers, but only 8 relief pitchers. If you want to count Schmaltz, there's 9. So I mean, it's out of the 224 players, there's only 9 relief pitchers. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's not a value to them until you need them, right? Who needs a Mariano Rivera until you don't have Mariano or Trevor or John Franco or Bruce Sutter or Raleigh Fingers or Goose Gossage? Who needs those guys until you need those guys, right? And so everybody can do it, but can they do it for longevity? Can they keep running out there? And I mean, closers don't have the luxury of a fall net. You're going to have your bad days, but you don't have the luxury of having the fall net. And when you put up numbers, a consistent number of batting average against or strikeouts per 9 innings or whatever you want to value guys on, dominance is dominance. And if in areas that you're looking for, it's very difficult to explain why these guys, don't fall. I mean, how do you say that a Kenley Jansen is not a Hall of Famer? I mean, the guy's tremendous. How do you say that a Craig Kimbrell's not a Hall of Famer? I mean, there's so many guys But I mean, and I understand it's a tough process, but when you talk about dominance, if you're really going to talk about dominance, the numbers have to be what they are. You can't get away from, and I guess I keep getting back to, everybody says my 900 innings is the fallback. Oh, we can't put a guy in there with only 900, but everything else is better than some of the guys that are actually in the Hall of Fame.
No
so
question.
how do you say that that's justifiable if my numbers are better at 900 innings than a guy who's got 1,100 innings? I mean, those are the things. I mean, when you talk about dominance, that's the thing that it comes back to. And you know as well as I do, Jay, this is a political game. It's not a true game of numbers. I mean, Johnny Franco and guys like that, a guy like Dale Murphy and guys like that. There's so many guys that are outliers that have those numbers that weren't able to get in. But I tell you, I don't know what the game would be like without a Johnny Franco or a Dale Murphy or guys like that were dominant in their era and held a high position. But once again, you're at the mercy of people I don't know. I don't even know if they've seen me. I don't know if it's word of mouth that they go by, and so it's difficult. So that's why I try to stay outside of it.
Well, listen, your Mets family here is pulling for you, my friend, and hopefully on January 23rd you'll have great news. And I appreciate your time today, Billy.
Jay, I always appreciate seeing you. Take care, buddy. Thanks again.